I'm Dr. Kim Stetzel, and I'm a second-generation chiropractor. My dad's a chiropractor. My husband's a chiropractor. We practice together in a home office in Branchville. And I have two children who are both in chiropractic school. We're creating a dynasty. It's a very important part of our life, and I'm very, very excited to be here today. If we don't take care of ourselves, then we're not going to have the ability to care for those that we are caring for at a level that we probably really want to. Because you're not doing this just for kicks and giggles. You know, you're doing this because you feel a calling, or you probably would be doing something else, you know. And so you want to do what you do to the best of your ability, and that's what I want to talk to, speak to a little bit about this afternoon. So we're going to talk about your healthy life, and a lot of it's about more of this and less of that. And a lot of times, we were just talking about, I was talking with Lisa, my husband just lost a lot of weight, and we're talking all the, should I do this, should I do that, should I do that? You read, every time you could read something conflicting about one thing or another. But if we remember, it's about more of those positive things that we do for ourselves, and a little less of the negative things that we do for ourselves. We're going to bring ourselves to a healthier life, because we're moving in one direction or another. We're moving in a positive direction, healthy, or we're moving in a negative direction, less than healthy. One way or the other. There's really no static in this life. Because of life and entropy and stresses, if we don't put those inputs in, we know which way we're moving. And when we look at optimal health or wellness, and this is where we want to, don't we each want the best we can for ourselves, the family, our loved ones, and things like that? And what does it mean to be optimally healthy, and what does it mean to be well? In our society, health a lot of times is defined by how we feel. I feel good, I'm healthy. I don't feel good, I'm sick, and I need to do something to myself or take something or whatever till I feel good again, and then I'm healthy. But that really isn't necessarily wellness and being the best we can be. There's a difference between being not sick and being healthy, just like there's a difference between being not poor and rich. That's where most of us live, right? If we're not sad, doesn't necessarily mean we're happy, But wouldn't we like to go toward happy? Wouldn't we like to go toward wealth and prosperity? So when we look at the definition of optimal health or wellness, it means physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. It means our body's functioning, and our life is really functioning at the best it can be in all aspects of our health. And that's what we want to look at a little. So the thing is that the choices we make today really determine our tomorrow. And we can either, there we go, be looking to go to facilitate wellness, which focuses on improving function, rather than eliminating symptoms, or just suppressing symptoms. Our healthcare system right now is a lot of times just about how can I make it feel not bad anymore? How can I make the numbers function? And I know you guys, when you're dealing with people who are at their terminal illness, you just want them to be able to cope and live and function, in a comfortable way at that point. But what we're here to talk about today is more than that, is being the best we can and really facilitating our health the best it can, and not just making the symptoms go away. What can we do to be our best? And that's where, we have some control over that, and it's the choices we make today which will determine our tomorrow. It's like, okay, am I going to put some money in the bank? Yeah, then tomorrow I might have some money in the bank, but I need it. Am I going to put some money in my health account? And I'm going to put some exchange in my relationship account? Everything that we feed is really what's going to grow. Because we see the way that our society, which focuses, especially in this country, so much on just symptoms and taking care of problems, isn't necessarily giving us the health that we need. The CDC says that 1 in 5 to 1 in 3 adults will be diabetic by 2050. And some of the things that we're going to talk about today, I think, if people participated in some of these things, it really would help to make a difference in those statistics. There's a lot of things that go into that, but there's a lot that we can do to make a difference. In less than one generation, the percentage of deaths due to chronic disease has exploded from 72% to 89%. And that's where the illness is coming in, chronic diseases, and most of those diseases, we're living longer, but we have more chronic diseases, and most of those have to do with lifestyle. And lifestyle is something we can make a difference. Even when you look at things that are supposedly genetic factors will be influenced by the environment that the genes find themselves in. So you could have the same genes. There's a study that was done on 2 twins, identical twins, who were raised in different environments. And one, I guess they were split up at birth, and one had every luxury, every privilege, and grew up healthy and no problems and successful and did well, and one did not have those advantages and ended up in really bad straits with many chronic health problems, and they met or found each other in their mid-20s when the study was done, and the difference was monumental. So how we live our life really can impact the level of our health. And the things that we do, we're in survival or growth, but never both at the same time. And what that means, it's like if you're being chased by a tiger, you're not necessarily worried about being the best that you can be. You just want to live. And most of us in our society, because of stress and because of our lifestyle of go, 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 are always in survival. But when we take some time to put some input into ourselves and put some input into our health, then we can come to growth and we can do better. Now there's so many different aspects of health and growth and what we can do, and I can't certainly cover it all, but we're going to be focusing a little bit more on things that we can do and a couple of aspects of health and where we can make a difference. Because the healthcare, like I said, that we're got right now, 75% of the $2.8 trillion spent in the U.S. right now is on crisis care. Did you know that the United States ranks in the 30th? It was they're number 35 out of all of the developed nations in our life expectancy. 26th, and that's there's 35 of the economically developed countries that they're looking at. So, if we look at that, we're at the bottom, we're toward the bottom in life expectancy. We're at 26th in our infant mortality rate, and yet we're number 1 in how much we spend. There's something that seems out of balance there, We're spending a lot, and a lot of it is on drugs and pharmaceuticals. I mean, the amount of money that's spent in this country on drugs and pharmaceuticals, we control a third of what gets spent in the entire world. That something's not, and we're not that healthy. So we need to be looking and doing things differently. We want to do different thinking and different conversation about it. Okay, so the challenge is that we have too much of certain things and not enough of other things, okay? We have too much sedentary time and not enough movement. We have too much stress and not enough time and relaxation. We have too much not quality foods necessarily and not enough, too much not quality foods and not enough healthy foods. And when we look at it, and that's the thing, we can look at this equation and look in our life and say, what might I have too much of that I can make a difference of, and what might I have not enough of that is going to make a positive impact for myself, that we can make that change. And it's just a little formula to remember, I can make a difference, Okay, so we can make a difference. There was a study and I want to get this one right. This was done, the combined health behaviors. This was the Epic Norfolk Prospective Population Study, the Department of Public Health and Primary Care at Cambridge, Cambridge School of Medicine, found that when they studied it was like 14,000 people or something. It was a very big study, and when they looked at different cohorts and lifestyle factors and longevity and things like that, they found that by not smoking, by exercising, by having a moderate alcohol intake, which was up to 14 units of alcohol a week, which I thought was kind of high, you know, but the alcohol and 5 servings of fruit or vegetables a day. If you did those things compared to people who didn't do those things, and if you did all 4 of those things, your lifespan was the average 14 years longer. You know, so that's where I'm saying we can make a difference. Now, if you did one of those things, you know, say you smoked, then that would, you know, decrease it somewhat. But when you do all of those things, and when we look at that, you know, and you see, yeah, you know, it's because sometimes, I don't know, like for me, what do I eat? What do I do? How do I do everything? Life is getting busy. What difference does it make? It makes a difference. You know, it makes a difference today, and it makes a difference in your health tomorrow. It makes a difference in how you get to enjoy your life. It makes a difference how you interact with your family and your co-workers and those other things by increasing our level of health. Because unfortunately, you guys see what it's like for people when they don't have their health. You know, how many of them are able to be happy and enjoy, and, you know, they're not. And isn't that what we all want for ourselves and our family, is to make that difference? So we can make a difference by doing those things. One thing that wasn't included in there, and this is, you know, again, looking at where we're going to, and we're going to be looking at like structural stuff today, because, you know, to get into the foods and the stress reduction, and each of those is probably their own talk. But how many of you have heard this, sitting is the new smoking? A couple, but not everybody. You know, and you're like, what the heck does that mean? Well, they found that our sedentary lifestyles and by sitting causes more damage to our bodies than actually smoking. You're like, what? You know, they've done all these things on how bad. But because we're sitting, and I became exposed to this a number of years ago. There was a NASA scientist who did studies on the astronauts, and they found that by not being in gravity, their different health parameters, cholesterol and other things like that, got significantly worse when they were out in space. Like, if they were out, I forget how long it was, for this amount of time, it would age their bodies for like a year. And then when they came back, because they didn't have the gravity, they didn't have that stress of gravity, we were designed to be in that. Now they're also finding that, and then when they would get up and move, that would reverse that. But when we sit for prolonged periods of time, it causes lots of negative damage to the body. So sitting affects your body in a number of different ways. Because when we're sitting, the body doesn't move as much. In our head, from sitting too long, blood clots can form after sitting too rigidly for a long time. When we sit for long periods of time, fluid can pool in our legs. When it pools in our legs and then we go to lay down, then that fluid gets distributed. It can distribute into the neck and contribute to sleep apnea at night. It can contribute or go into the heart area, you know, because it wasn't absorbed and moving properly all the time throughout the day. They find sitting too much can contribute to obesity and colon cancer, because enzymes in the blood vessels of the muscles responsible for fat get shut off. So there's physiological damage that occurs as a result of a sedentary lifestyle. It contributes to cardiovascular disease, sleep apnea, fluid collects in the lungs, and that puts more stress on the heart. And when we're not moving, then that also can affect the heart. So we want to get up and move as much as possible. Now I don't know, like many of you who are working with patients, you're probably up and not necessarily seated a lot during the day. I don't know whether you have to sit back and write reports unless you're driving. I know the women who worked with my mom, it's like you're going from here to there, and anybody who's seated for a long time, and we're going to talk about some of the things that you can do. Some of you are like, well, I have to, but there are ways that we can combat it or get around it. What they found is that 300,000 deaths occur annually due to inactivity and poor dietary habits in the U.S. alone. 20% of all deaths of people 35 and older are attributed to physical inactivity. 65% of Americans watch 2 or more hours of TV a day. I was looking at a thing, when we were doing this with kids too, like the prevalence of obesity. Kids have like the average 7.7 hours of screen time a day. And the sitting, they're sitting when they get to school, and then they come home and they're sitting in front of whatever screens, and they're designed to be moving. Getting ready for this talk, I was looking through this book I got, and it's called Deathbound, and it talks about sitting and the problem with sitting. Because the other thing, and this will be relevant to how we're going to be able to give you guys something to walk away with today, besides the idea of I got to move more, was that this guy who wrote this book is a physical therapist, and he had a young child who went to kindergarten or first grade, and so he's watching them run. And a normal runner, like a person who runs, kind of runs on their toes, and most people will run on their heels, and they clunk on their heels, and that's what really hurts you when you're running, if you're clunking on your heels. And he found that most of these kids, when they first went to whichever grade it was, were running, and they were running on their toes. They had this beautiful normal gait. And then when he saw them, like halfway through the year or a little further into the year running, they were running the wrong way, because they'd been, I guess it was first grade, because first graders sit, they'd been sitting now for all those hours in their desks. And and that's where it starts from the young kids. And one of the things that I saw that was really scary, it says that the 2010 American Cancer Society study published found that women who were inactive and sat over 6 hours a day were 94% more likely to die during the time period than those who were physically active and sat less than 3 hours a day. Men, in the same thing, men were 48% more likely to die. So for women, it's real important not to be sedentary, because it just causes a cascade that goes forward. And so we get up and we need to get up and move more frequently. So what can we do to make a difference? And that's the thing, is that we can look at all kinds of negative stuff, but what can we do positively? One of the things is we reduce optional sitting. Make ourselves get up and move more, like you make a conscious thing about it. You can set a timer. Some of the things, I think Selective Insurance just bought Varidesks that go from you can go from seated to standing, and that's a positive thing. Now, just standing still in one position for 8 hours a day isn't necessarily a positive thing. And I've seen, in researching this, they have things where you can put one leg up. So there's other things you have to do, but moving that position. If you're sedentary, I'll always tell people to set a timer for 20 minutes to half hour, and you get up and move, Just do some movements and exercises. And some of these exercises that I'm giving, that we're going to go over today, are wonderful to begin to incorporate into the things that you can do to help yourself through that. You want to prioritize position and mechanics whenever you can. And this is the thing that is going to help you guys so much. The thing is that if we've been sitting a lot, what happens is that the psoas muscles, which are our hip flexors, they shorten up and they become tight. And then when we stand up, they're still kind of tight, and it pulls on our lower back. So now you have tight hip flexors, and when we sit, our glutes get weak. And our glutes, everybody's always like, core, I gotta keep my core strong. And core is important, but our glutes are what supports us upright like this. I can work on my stomach till the cows come home, but if my glutes are weak from sitting, and from sitting too long, they like, I don't know, I don't remember what the word was, but there's something, they kind of almost like become paralyzed, you know, so from sitting too long, so that our hip flexors are tight and our glutes are weak, and then we go to pick people up and bend over beds and have them turn over. I mean, the things that you guys have to do on with a person that can't help is amazing. So keeping those muscles as strong as possible, however you can, and not letting that it's more of strength training to keep them strong and less of the sedentary lifestyle that just weakens them, you know. And people are like, well, I exercise, and exercise is vitally important. So what I'm going to say next does not negate the fact that all the studies that have shown that regular exercise has valuable benefits is, it doesn't negate that. We need to exercise. And if we're sedentary for a certain amount of time, the negative effects of being sedentary outweigh the positive effects of exercise, like almost negate, you know, will negate them. You know, so you could, if you sit, and they found that you sit 8 hours or more in a day, and you exercise the 30 minutes or whatever 4 or 5 times a week, and you're doing that, you're still going to have the negative effects. It's like, darn, you know. But if you exercise, because no matter what you do, exercising is good and has a positive benefit, and you make sure you get up and you move and don't just maintain that sedentary, it'll make a difference. And the other half of it, and this isn't saying don't exercise, because it is, but if you just get up and move a little bit, if it's a choice of exercise or get up and move, it's even higher, you know? And that's actually kind of easy. It doesn't require exercise shoes, it doesn't require sweat, you know. Again, we need to do those things, so I'm not saying don't do it, but if you're going to do one, you definitely want to do that. And you want to maintain your body on a regular basis, because like, how many of you have a car and never ever do anything to take care of it? How many of you never ever brush your teeth? Never. You don't maintain them. I won't ask if you go to the dentist or not. I'm just going to start with brushing or flossing. All right? You know, we need to do things to maintain ourselves on a regular basis, and we need to do things to maintain our body on a regular basis. You know, that as a chiropractor is a big focus of what I do. And as a chiropractor, we look at posture, we look at the position that we're in. A sedentary lifestyle is going to definitely negatively affect our posture. Sitting at a desk and down and forward like this, the lifestyle that we live, you know, when you look at this, the two negative, now these are exaggerated, but that forward head posture, we're going to see that in a minute, and the flat back tucked under or the sway back increased, when our body is not in its proper alignment, we have to work harder just to sit and breathe.